Go, 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 let's get it. I'm a trapping fanatic, that shit automatic, so I cannot turn it on or off. Bitches all on my dick, then she hop on my dick, I'm like, why you keep hopping on and off? Yo, bitch all on my dick, she be doing the most. I tell her, little bitch, she so extra. And my gun up on me, but not run up on me. Niggas, they wanna fight, they some wrestlers.
A woman in Japan gives birth to a healthy baby boy. His strength is insane from birth. He's regarded as someone who could become insanely strong with just his base power. Inko raises her son with respect for others around him. She teaches him what it truly means to live a life. Izuku grows up much differently here as he has access to ki, and it comes on early in his life. Inko knows her son will be very great one day, so she supports him fully. Izuku is inspired by the pro hero All Might and his own Saiyan pride. Saving those in danger, it's almost like a dream that he wants to make a reality. As the years pass, Izuku takes on more and more, well, training that is. Sure, he was part human, half coming from his dad's side, but he was always drawn to danger and combat. Being around his mom, who was constantly training and fighting, really helped hone his battle spirit. In school, he has only one rival that competes with him, Bakugo, a friend he's known since he was younger. Each of them has their own sort of arrogance, but it's backed up by their quirks. They were always friends, and this is where Izuku gets his nickname. Years keep on going by as both boys plan to get into UA High School together. Once hearing this, Inko is glad her son wants to be a hero, so she tells him about a special place that only her family, well, their family, has access to, as it's a training room. He'll have more access to it once he becomes older. For now, he's given weighted clothing to wear throughout his life to make everything harder. Soon, Izuku becomes 14 and has about one more year before he takes the entrance exam to get into UA. Izuku, knowing this, doesn't attend school as much. He focuses on passing, so he studies a lot and trains with his mother. This will be the year that he's actually able to go into this room, which was completely white. Inko tells her son the legend of their people. If he keeps training, he could become a Super Saiyan, a being with unimaginable power. You can become one, just like your grandfather. He was a brilliant warrior who was a prodigy from birth. So, keep training. Inko kicks her son to the ground where he struggles to get up. Good. That's enough for today. The two head outside the room and now sit in their living room. Mom, are you a Super Saiyan? Well, I can't say I actually am, but I've come close twice. It's a power that responds to your emotions. The first time I got close was when my friend was killed by a villain right in front of me. But I was taken from the area by All Might, who had saved me before I could do anything. Wait, you were saved by the #1 hero? Yeah, but that was long before he was #1. And the second time was when villains attacked our city and many others. The pros were scattered and outnumbered, so I jumped in to help them. I was surrounded as it felt like a war zone. In that moment of need, to save people and save myself, my hair flared up and sparked a new color. Rage filled my mind, and I was able to defeat those around me because of my anger. But right after, I soon passed out. I've never been able to go back and access that power because I don't have the need to. I'm raising you. I don't have the same anger like I did in that moment, and I believe that's the reason. Izuku looks at his mother, calling her amazing, before heading into his room, where he goes into his own bathroom, and he draws his own bath. He sits down, looking at the ceiling, and then at his hand. A power that comes when I need it most. I don't think I'll be able to access Super Saiyan anytime soon. So why don't I work on mastering a different power? Izuku watches his tail rise from the water and he moves it around. Yeah, this will definitely give me an edge during the test. We have a short time skip here to the day that All Might saves Deku. He was walking under the bridge heading home through a shortcut when the slug monster attacked him. Izuku dodged his attacks and sent it into the wall. He raises his hand, preparing to launch a ki blast, but it stopped. All Might moves his hand down and tells the citizen that he's here to handle it. Izuku gets to watch firsthand the #1 hero of Japan in action. He takes down the villain with ease, and he actually signs Izuku's notebook. Thanks, but can I ask you something? All Might turns around with curiosity. Is it possible for us to spar for a second? I just want to see how much further my goal is really away from me. All Might doesn't know what to say as he sees the tail of this child. A Saiyan. This family truly is perplexing. This is where we get a short explanation of what it means to be a Saiyan in the My Hero universe. They technically aren't born with quirks. Everything they can do is because their genetics were modified a long time ago by All For One, who did so to one man. So, Izuku is still technically quirkless in this timeline as well. All Might tells him to now follow him. He jumps to a rooftop far away and waits for only a second as Izuku lands there as well from flying. As the two land and All Might sits down, he enters his weak form, coughing up blood. Are you okay? What happened? This was the injury I sustained long after fighting All For One. Izuku knows the battle that he's talking about, but he didn't know he got injured from it. He would also listen to All Might's speech of what it truly means to be a hero and the symbol of peace. Izuku smirks and stands near the ledge with a fire in his eyes. I want to save as many people as possible. Just look at the city that we're in. All those people down there live different lives and have their own problems. The last thing they should have to worry about is their safety. I want to be a hero that can save everyone around me, even the villains. All Might's eyes widen as the sunset surrounds the boy, almost making him glow in a way. What do you mean, the villains? Well, I believe the villains can be saved as well. Of course I do. I wish my mom was here and she'd explain it to you better. But you saved her. So, you're my idol and hers. She's always told me that villains have no choice to become evil, as the world has shut them out. The world blocks out their cries for help, so they look to the pro-heroes for saving. Becoming a villain is one of the biggest cries out for help, because they don't know what else to do. So don't worry, All Might. I'm going to get into UA and become a pro-hero, and then I'll save all the people and villains I can, and I won't turn back on anyone. And this is a promise I put on my Saiyan pride. Izuku's energy begins to charge up as he becomes even stronger in this moment. Ki flows around his body gracefully as he watches the sun begin to set. Izuku tilts his head to All Might. My name is Izuku Midoriya. I'll be the one to score the highest on the entrance exams, so make sure you're watching out for me, All Might. Izuku flies from the rooftop, back under the bridge to collect the rest of his things. All Might stands up, thinking it was perfect that the two of them met. That boy could be the next one to inherit One For All. It might just be perfect that he's a Saiyan too. He might be able to keep up with this enormous power. An explosion then goes off in the city, causing All Might to touch his pocket. He has a hole in it. I dropped him. He begins to run down the stairs to make it to where the explosion is, where he sees the flames on the buildings and the slug monster holding a blonde kid. All Might wants to do something, but holds his side, remembering his time limit for the day. We're pretty cool, right? Whatever, just get your hands off of me. The crowd erupts seeing the two young heroes in action. News reporters swarm the boys and ask them questions, with one of the biggest ones being, what school do these young heroes plan to go to? At the same time, they announce UA High School. As Izuku heads home, he walks into someone who stands in his path. It was All Might. I was going to wait to see how you did on the entrance exams, but I think I've seen enough. Izuku, I want you to inherit my power and surpass me as Japan's #1 hero. Izuku falls to one knee, bowing to All Might with tears in his eyes. He tries to speak, but the words aren't able to form out of his mouth. All that can come out is thank you. All Might hands him a piece of his hair, and Izuku backs away for a moment. What do you want me to do with that? You'll have to eat it to gain my power. Wait, really? Yes, you need a DNA transfer to truly gain my power. Well, do I have to eat it by itself, or is it okay if I wash it down with some other food? All Might nods and watches Izuku pull out a small capsule. He clicks it, and a bag of food comes out of thin air. Izuku eats the hair with the rest of his food, as he had pasta, a burger, fries, chicken, and a gallon of water. Alright, I feel much better now. All Might then tells him to meet him here tomorrow morning, as Izuku nods, heading home. His mother grabs him once he's inside, and hugs him tight. You were amazing. I knew I raised you right, and I'm sure you'll become an even greater pro hero than I was. Izuku hugs her back, thanking her. The next day, early in the morning, Izuku heads to the location and sees the dirty beach. For your first step in mastering my power, your body needs to be ready to handle it. So, I'll need you to clean the beach. Izuku does so in just one day, leaving many more months to train. They were way ahead of schedule, so the next day, All Might begins to show him how to utilize the quirk. Focus on a glass of water in your mind. Most people have a glass that's full already because of their quirk, but yours is basically empty, so pour one for all into that glass. But do not overfill it. Just pour a small amount, and work with that first. Izuku nods, closing his eyes, envisioning what he's told. Lightning suddenly begins to spark around his body, and then continues to surge as he's able to access a small portion of one for all. All Might is shocked. He has no visible strain at all, and he's using just 5%. Okay, now let's see how you do in combat. All Might throws a punch, and Izuku dodges, throwing his own. The two go back and forth for a while until Izuku loses. Not bad for your first run. I was able to use 100% pretty early, but this one for all is much stronger than the one that I possessed. Izuku nods, standing up once again. Alright, I'm ready. Let's go again. All Might and Izuku train like this for months, as he also does training with Bakugo and training at home with his mother. 10 months quickly pass by, as Izuku is much stronger than ever before. He flies to school and descends down to the gate. He walks in seeing Bakugo, but trips as he waves to him. He starts to fall but is saved. He turns seeing a girl next to him. Oh, thanks. How do you plan to become a hero and you're already getting saved? Shut up. Anyway, thanks. I'm Izuku. I'm Uraraka. The two smile, heading into the building with Bakugo as the three of them sit together. The written test portion of this exam is pretty easy for Izuku, and now comes the practical exam. Before the gates even open, Izuku's ki starts overflowing. As soon as they do, he flies, leaving a path of destroyed robots behind him. He launches into the skies, and with his hands above his head, he launches down ki blasts that destroy robots all around the fake city. He then goes back down and uses one for all to rip through them, as electricity would appear on his body. He punches 3 robots, and they destroy an entire building. After about 5 minutes, a strange alarm goes off, and this is where we see the 0 Point bot. He's all mine. Izuku quickly grabs Uraraka and gets her to a safe building. He then jumps into the air and floats in front of it. The robot keeps taking steps towards him, and he begins to charge and attack. A silhouette of his ancestor appears next to him during this as he charges it. And this is when the robot is about halfway down the road, as Izuku begins yelling, and the yellow lightning bursts from his palms as he would shout out, "Final Flash!" The attack rips through the 0-point bot and the ground below, leaving nothing behind but a crater in the fake city. All those who were watching dropped to their knees as Izuku stood there, heavily breathing. Not bad at all. This attack still drains me. The test quickly concludes and the applicants go home. The teachers, principal, and some pro heroes review the practical exams later that day. And they all agree he is the most impressive out of all of them. But he needs to learn some restraint. In his head, All Might, who was there, states that was him holding back, but they'd figure that out later. The first day of school approaches, and Izuku flies to UA, landing in front of the gate. News reporters ask him questions, but he dashes inside to avoid them. Then, he heads to Class 1A, where Bakugo was being yelled at for his feet being on the desk. Izuku sits down next to him, but sits on top of his own desk. Ida yells at the two of them, but they ignore him and talk to each other instead. "You're such a freak of nature. I didn't even know you had that type of attack already." "Well, I figured I couldn't use it on you, so how would I tell you?" "That was the best time for me to perform it anyway, but it still left me pretty drained." Denki and Kirishima walk over and ask the two of them if they already know each other. "Yeah, we've always gone to the same school. Bakugo's my rival, as we've always competed with each other to be the number one in everything. But next comes the number one hero. All of you, take your seats and shut your mouths." Aizawa stands up, introducing himself as our homeroom teacher. The students listen to him talk before he tells them to go put on their gym uniforms and meet them outside. Once they do, he tosses a ball to Izuku. "Use your quirk to throw it as far as you can." "Alright. Is there a certain distance I'm aiming for, or just..." "No. Just throw it." Izuku grabs the ball with All Might watching from behind a corner. "Should I use One for All, or just my base strength?" "No. I came here to be the best, so I need to push myself." Lightning surges around his body as he activates One for All. The power coming off of him sends his classmates flying back. All Might notes he's doing pretty good with controlling 20%, and he's able to hold it for long amounts now, thanks to that body. Izuku throws the ball, and Aizawa holds up his phone, reading the infinity symbol, meaning the ball somehow reached space. The class then does their test, with Mineta coming in last overall. He then tells them that it was a joke. He just wanted to see how badly they would push themselves, and it worked. Aizawa walks around the corner and sees All Might. "So, how do you like the new class?" "I think they're a bunch of kids who don't know what it takes to become a pro hero. This lifestyle puts a lot of pressure on heroes like us, but I'll do my job to apply the same pressure to them so they can adjust better. I know some of them will crack, but others, many others will excel and reach further heights, so we'll see." All Might keeps watching Izuku, who stands proudly, and at the end of the day, he flies home and decides to ask his mother about something. This causes them to go into the training room for just a couple of hours. The next day, their class is taught by All Might. Suit up like a pro and meet me on ground level. All the students go out, and Deku's hero outfit is much different. It's a Saiyan armor made by his mother. This was more like the Cell Games armor than anything. I was going to give him a gi, but he isn't a martial artist, so I feel like it made no sense for him to have one right now. The teams are made, and they are the same as usual, as the first two teams to participate are Bakugo and Ida against Izuku and Uraraka. Izuku begins stretching as they walk down the halls. Then he stops as he raises his arm to the ceiling. As he does so, a ki blast shoots through multiple floors, and Izuku jumps forward with Uraraka floating behind him. As he sees Bakugo, he uppercuts him. The two begin fighting but don't even use their quirks. Izuku slams his fist into the face of his opponent, and Bakugo counters with a knee to his chest. The two trade blows with everyone in the, camera room, watching confused. This is supposed to be a test, but each of them seems so thrilled to face each other in combat. Izuku goes for another punch, but his tail will then grab him and flips Bakugo over before he could do anything else. And then before he could hit the wall, he uses an explosion to propel him back into the battle. Izuku blocks his punch, but is sent through another wall, and it crashes down on him. Bakugo stands on top of the rubble, looking down at the buried Izuku. Get up. We both know this isn't over. Bakugo's face is then grabbed by Izuku, who throws him across the room. He's able to recover, but is not able to see Izuku's leg before it kicks him into the wall. Izuku dodges the next explosion and raises his own hand to Bakugo's face. He shoots a ki blast point blank and sends him to the bottom floor unconscious. He dusts off his shoulder and looks down. Not bad, Bakugo, but it'll take more than that to win a fight with me on equal terms. Izuku flies up to the highest floor where the bomb was and where Ida was facing Uraraka. Uraraka was actually struggling with his speed as the two teamed up, and Izuku broke one of the pillars as she grabbed it with her quirk. She swung it down at him, but he was still dodging each time. He goes to dodge one more time, but instead, Izuku grabs hold of him. Do it now! She swings down the pillar on both of them, sending each of them down a couple levels. Uraraka secures the bomb and Izuku stands up, with his armor really having no injuries or cracks at all. Not bad for our first test, right? She comes down and high-fives him, as she tells him good job, as now All Might tells him to come back to the room. After they review, the next teams go and do the same as many follow this pattern. Over in an unknown location, Villain sat in a bar. So, he teaches at UA High School now. How interesting. The next day is even more interesting, as reporters are seen outside the school and interview students as they head inside. Their day would go as normal, as at lunch, Izuku finds an empty table to sit down at. Uraraka, Bakugo, Kirishima, and Mina would sit down with him. Kirishima turns to Izuku. Where's your food at? Izuku then pulls out a capsule and clicks it. A bunch of food appears on the table as he begins eating all of it. They ask him to slow down, but Bakugo stops them. There's no point. He's like a barbarian. He has to eat like that to maintain his strength every day. All of them turn to see that the food was already gone, but it was just there. That was as good as ever. All of them then ask him a question. How much was that capsule? Capsule Corp's, products are so expensive. Oh yeah, and isn't your hero suit made by them too? Talk about lucky they would sponsor you. Bakugo looks at Deku and begins laughing. You know you can't keep your secret forever, nerd. Yeah, you're right. Do you guys know a woman named Inko? They then turn to him with a shocked expression. Of course we do. She's the head at Capsule Corp. She used to be a pro hero as well. She's super famous and strong. Izuku begins to nod, but also tries to change the subject as they talk about the Briefs family, as they're known all around Japan for their capsules. And before he could change the subject, they question him. Well, it's my mom. The only reason no one knows is because I have my dad's name, Midoriya. All of them scream in shock except for Bakugo, but that was his initial reaction as well. Wait, so that means you're rich? Well, not exactly. My mom doesn't spoil me or anything like that. I don't even get an allowance now that I think about it. She wants to teach me to value things around me. Uraraka sighs, as Izuku turns to her, asking what's wrong. This is when she reveals her reason for wanting to become a pro hero. So wait, that's all? They watch as Izuku pulls out his own phone, calling someone, as they talk for a bit before he turns to her. Hey, what's a good number to reach your dad? She gets nervous but tells him anyway, out of just shock of the question. Izuku then hangs up the phone and sits back. Bakugo looks at him, after finishing his own food. You just can't help yourself, can you? No, not really. Wait, what did you do? Oh, I just asked my mom if there were any spots open in any of the company's industries. Well, they're divisions, so maybe your dad could get a better job. She said she'd call him later on today, so she'll probably work it out for me. Uraraka hugs Izuku, thanking him. You know you didn't have to do that at all. I didn't, but I want you to become a pro hero for even more reasons than just that. Mina and Kirishima stared at Izuku, asking him more questions about his famous mom. If you guys really want to meet her, you can come with me after school. They accept the invite, and right after they do, alarms go off in the school. Many run in the direction, but Izuku stays seated with Bakugo. The others at the table would do so as well, until the lunchroom is empty and quiet. Hey Deku, how many do you sense? He closes his eyes and focuses on the people around him. Outside, they just seem to be regular people who made it into the school somehow. Wait a minute. What's that? Izuku tells him that there's someone with a powerful quirk that just vanished from the area somehow. Nah, he seemed crazy strong. The others ask how he's able to sense that, and Izuku explains, I'm able to sense the energy inside of other people. Normal citizens, or civilians, have this pure feeling in a way, in their hearts, and most villains have a sort of malice that I can always sense. It's usually small, but this time, it was insane. Maybe he's planning on something. Izuku stands up, stating he's going to tell one of the teachers. After he talks to the principal about what he sensed, he heads to the classroom where Ida was made the class president. Izuku's friends go to his house after school and hang out, as the next day the students are told to prepare for their field trip. All Might is said to join them as well, but he's late. He's occupied helping the city out. It seemed more and more villains were popping up, early in the morning too, which was strange. The police and pro heroes were on top of it, but it still seemed odd. Izuku could sense the villains all over the city while he was at school, but he paid no attention to it. After they suit up and get on the bus, this is where Mina asked him another question. Your quirk is pretty cool, but I still don't understand what it is. Others begin to listen in, wondering what his answer would be. My quirk? Well, it's myself, to put it simple. I'm kind of superhuman in a way. My family is able to harness the energy within our bodies and form it into attacks, and we could also make ourselves stronger by training. It's really hard for me to explain it without sounding too arrogant. No, it's fine. I'm the one who asked. They arrive to be greeted by the space hero number 13. He explains what it means to save a life and how important it is for heroes to know how to do that. They head into the facility, where he begins to lecture them more on their rescue missions that were about to proceed. Izuku jumps forward without warning and shoots down a large ki blast. Aizawa shouts, asking what he was doing, but also looks down, watching the villains scatter and try to avoid the blast. How did he know? Izuku tells them that they're under attack, so be prepared, as they'll have to call for backup. Aizawa tries his phone, but the communication lines are cut off. Open the door instead. Some of the students try, but they're locked somehow. Eraserhead has no other options but to fight the villains to protect his students. Since Izuku is the only one who can support him, he does so from long range while staying back with his class. A black smoke surrounds them, and Izuku jumps in trying to blast it away with Bakugo and Kirishima, but is still teleported above the flood zone. Luckily, he can fly, so he looks down into the water and sees Tsuyu jump out with Mineta onto a boat. "Hey, are you guys okay?" They nod, and Izuku holds down one of his hands, sensing the villains down below in the water. Big bang attack! The orb of energy launches down into the water and creates a whirlpool, pushing the villains together. The boat was also being pushed down, so Izuku yelled for them to grab onto his leg. They would do so, and now they're on the shore. I have a feeling the villains aren't here for us. They're only trying to distract us from what they really want. It must be All Might. Mineta tells Izuku there's no way that All Might could lose, but Izuku isn't sure. If the villains attacked us, they might have a plan to either kill him or weaken him if he is their target. The only thing our class can do is fight back. How can you say that? It's so scary. Wait, you two are scared of them? You're not? No. In fact, my blood is boiling just thinking about it. Izuku charges up his energy and bursts it into the air, flying to a different area. Just as the Nomu was going to grab Eraserhead, Izuku kicks it away. Nice. I made it just in time. Let's see how everyone else is holding up. He shouts to his classmates, who would respond, saying they're doing okay, if this is what they could call it. As now, they have a real fight on their hands. Izuku would close his eyes, also sensing the battles going on throughout the USJ. Well, I sense Bakugo that way, but I don't think I'll have to worry about him. The Nomu jumps back at Izuku, who catches its fist and slams his hand through it. He pulls it out, and then it's covered in blood, only to watch it regenerate a part of its body. Well, that's scary to say the least. Izuku punches it back and asks his homeroom teacher to fight with him. Aizawa would stand up, and Izuku states, "That thing's dangerous. Just how many people were sacrificed?" Aizawa, with a shocked expression, turns to Izuku. "What do you mean?" I hate to assume the worst, but it looks like the energy I'm feeling from that thing, it's more than one person in there. I don't think it's human, but it's definitely made up of them somehow. That would explain the multiple quirks. Still, I can't have you fighting if it's this dangerous. I know. That's why I chose to fight. I'm pretty pumped up. This will be my strongest foe yet. All we have to do is hold off until he arrives, right? Aizawa begrudgingly nods. Good. Then let's go take him on head on. Back me up when you can. Thanks. No, wait. He watches as Izuku clashes fists with the beast and punches it in the face. It turns its head slightly and tries to punch down at the boy and punches him into the ground. Izuku would dodge again, and he dodges a stomp. Aizawa then wraps his bandages around its neck, slamming it on his brain. Izuku jumps into the air and punches it down into a crater. He stands over the Nomu and sits there for a second as it doesn't move. Shigaraki then tries to grab Izuku, only to be blasted into the wall. Aizawa, he's the one I told the principal about. He let the reporters into the school. His energy is the exact same. The Nomu then headbutts Izuku, drawing blood from him, and punches him in the stomach. That's strange. His attacks got even stronger. Izuku swings his arm and the Nomu dodges it. This can't be good. Izuku is punched in his stomach so hard that his vision becomes blurred for a second, and he's slammed onto the ground by the beast. Aizawa tries to help him, but the same fate happens to him. Both teacher and student lay on the ground, wondering what they should do. In an instant, the Nomu is sent flying off by Izuku. He starts to stretch more and more, with Aizawa wondering how much energy his student really has. You know, I really want to save this for a different day, but who cares? I think I need that power in order to defeat him. The Nomu slowly begins walking towards him, but stops for a moment, watching Izuku's power build up. It shoots into the ceiling of the building where all of his classmates can see. Izuku continues to power up as Aizawa watches the boy somehow get taller and gain more muscle, with his teeth even sharper, and his eyes now glowing yellow, and his hair, it seemed to spike up in a way. The Nomu and Izuku now stand face to face. What is this power? He seems like a completely different person. Shigaraki wondered who this kid was. Not just that, but how was he able to fight the Nomu on par, a creature created to kill All Might? And he also seemed to act just like the hero, now that he thinks about it. No. Could this boy, could he be the future successor for All Might? This angered the villain even more than he already was. The Nomu would throw a punch that Izuku doesn't even care to dodge. The dust clears, and Izuku doesn't even have a bruise from the attack. The Nomu is sent flying just by one kick as Izuku vanishes. He appears behind the creature, placing his palm to its back. He shouts out loud enough for everyone to hear. This is the end. A blinding light covers the area. As it faded away, the Nomu was seen standing there, with an even bigger hole in its chest. It tried to regenerate again, but Izuku keeps hitting it. There's no time for it to focus on healing from such a fatal wound. Soon, Izuku started to lose control and ripped the Nomu apart. It regenerated once more, and Izuku, well, he lowered his stance. His power, it began to rise even further. In his mind, he would speak to himself. Yeah, this is it. I'll be able to reach the level of a Super Saiyan. Here it comes. The Nomu begins to charge back at Izuku, but the punch is stopped by a fashionably late All Might. He says his signature line before wasting no time and defeating the weakened creature. He sends it through the ceiling of the building with just one hand, and he raises that hand to the sky as the battle was truly over. Izuku was seen holding his head, trying to control his own anger as he focused more and more, and he began to calm himself down and shrink. Once he's calm, he sees Shigaraki going for All Might, who couldn't even sense him sneaking around. His rage exploded as he assumed the Akari state once again, and he punched Shigaraki's shoulder, dislocating it. The villain is teleported away, and the rest of the pros arrive soon after. All Might looks over to Izuku, who was still in that very same form. What an extraordinary power. In this state, he might even be able to use 40% of One for All. Izuku's power keeps rising as he focuses on his anger. Lightning strikes down around him, as cement would then surround the boy as he passes out from trying to transform. As this is when the USJ arc concludes. The villains are captured and detained, as well as the Nomu. The students are taken to a hospital, and the school is then closed for a couple days. When the students return to their homeroom, their teacher tells them of the sports festival. It'll be your real chance to be noticed by any pro-hero agency. Aizawa also tells them to do their best, and Izuku heads to the office of All Might after homeroom is over. You must do your best in the sports festival to be recognized by the heroes. Show the world that you will become the next number one. Here, Izuku doesn't interact with this class, or Class B at all, and the students begin training on their own with how little time they have. Soon the sports festival arrives, and Class 1A sits in their waiting room. Most of them seem to be very nervous about what's going on. Izuku laid back on a box staring at the ceiling. When do you guys think it will start? I'm kind of bored of waiting around. Todoroki walks over to Izuku and leans over him. As of now, I think you're equal to me in terms of strength. Izuku opens his eyes looking at him. No, I really don't think so. But hey, say what you want. You've also managed to gain the attention of Japan's #1 hero, haven't you? Yeah, I guess you could say that. Good. Then I'll be the one to defeat you here. Hearing that, Izuku stood up and looked down at Todoroki. I've done my research on you and your quirks, as well as your family. Endeavor's pretty impressive, don't you think? Just show me how much... Well, I can't even say that. Just show me how strong you really are. Both of them then dodge an attack from Bakugo. Don't you dare forget that I'm here, and I'm the best, you idiots. The class then heads out, and is greeted by Midnight, the overseer of the festival. She tells them all to be quiet and points to Izuku. He walks to the podium, as many begin to whisper. I don't really have anything to say at all. All I can tell you is my goal. I'll become Japan's next #1 hero. The other classes shout out at Izuku and begin to target him. The first event is revealed to be an obstacle course, as the students all line up and the gates open. Izuku bursts through all of them, flying at high speeds, until he encounters a group of 0-point robots. Really? That's it? Dirty fireworks. He points his finger towards them, blowing up 5 of them at once, causing them to fall behind him, and he continues on. President Mike states to the crowd that Izuku has a monstrous amount of firepower, and he tries to get Aizawa to comment on this. The teacher stays silent and watches Izuku be the first one to complete the obstacle race. He walks through and then sits down. Midnight asked him how it felt to be the first one through, and he sighed. I thought it was going to be more fun and challenging, but I also expected a fight to happen. She tells him to be patient, and All Might smirks. Izuku waits for everyone else to pass through the gate, as then it's revealed what the next event is. It'll be a cavalry battle, and she states that Izuku, since he came in first, will have a 10 million point bounty on his head. Oh really? That's it? Now this will be more exciting. Everyone turns to him as they begin to get fired up, but this also excites him. Still, no one wants to team up with them, so we end up with the same team as in canon. It consists of Izuku, Uraraka, Tokoyami, and Mei. The cavalry battle begins, and Izuku flies into the air. Good. Now I can see everything from here. Whose headband do I want to take first? Well, why don't we make this more interesting? Izuku zips around the battlefield, ripping off the headbands of everyone, leaving them all with 0 points, except for his team, of course. And then, he thinks about it, as Bakugo looks to his team, telling them to get ready. The real fight is about to begin. Izuku drops all the headbands from the sky, letting them fall as chaos begins to erupt. The teams do their best to grab as many as they could, and Izuku still interferes with them as well. He flies around fighting those that are being held up by their team, and stops them from getting more points. He then sends a blast of energy around the arena to make teams lose their balance, and some are eliminated from this. Midnight will call time on the event, and all the teams stop moving. Izuku then remains floating above his own team, as the leaderboards show that his team came in first this time around. The final event is revealed to be a battles in a tournament fashion. Izuku is pumped by this and decides to look up to see who he's facing. He reads the name, seeing Shinso, but he doesn't even know who that is because he didn't meet Class B at all. He then heads to his waiting room to wait for his match to be announced, as Ojiro, his classmate, walks into the room as well. He warns Izuku of Shinso's powers, and he would thank him. Well, he's not the one I want to fight, so I plan to end it quickly anyway. Ojiro still tells them to be careful and watches Izuku leave the room. He steps into the ring as many begin cheering for him. As soon as the match begins, he extends his hand, yelling out. A strong pressure sends Shinso flying back into the wall. Izuku was given the win by ring out. Not bad. I thought I would have pushed him through the wall though. Izuku watches the rest of the matches that occur in the first round, as this leads to the second round. He looked at the tournament bracket to see who he was facing, as it was Todoroki. This one might be interesting. He waves to his class as he begins heading towards his waiting room. In the hallway is where Endeavor walks around a corner, looking down at him. You have an impressive quirk, but I'd call it a curse. What are you getting at? Maybe you need to find out more about your ancestors. Shoto will surpass All Might, and if you wish to become the number one, he'll crush you too. Izuku looks at Endeavor and walks by him laughing. What's so funny? Nothing. I just like the fact that your son hasn't even acknowledged you by using your quirk, and you claim he can beat me with half of his power? It's foolish, really. What are you trying to say, kid? I'm saying your son is acting like a brat, so I'll be the one to help him realize that his power is actually his own. You may have given him it, but that doesn't mean you get to control him. Oh yeah, and about becoming number one, there's one thing a Saiyan like me always has, and it's his pride. So don't count on Shoto taking me down that easily. Izuku enters the ring, facing Todoroki, who already seemed on edge. The match begins and Izuku sits down. This shocks the crowd as ice comes his way, but he stops it with just one hand, and he moves his head around to look at his opponent. Come on, don't make that face at me. You're looking at me as if I'm the one who did something bad to you. Let's just talk for a bit. I don't want to. Well, that's too bad, because I'm not fighting you until you do. So, it's either you use both of your quirks, or you'll lose. Todoroki sends more ice with Izuku breaking it with a swat of his hand. He forces Todoroki to talk to him, and eventually convinces him that his second quirk is now his own. Fire ignites on that side of his body, and he sends scorching hot flames to his opponent. Izuku splits the flames with just his palms, and realizes his tail is on fire. He grabs it and starts to blow out the flames, as this is when Todoroki sees his opportunity. He sends ice towards Izuku, who would then vanish. Todoroki is then kicked out of the ring, but he stops himself with ice. Not bad. I really thought it was over. But let's keep going. The two trade blows, with Izuku humoring it for a while. Todoroki gives it everything he has, until he's now blown away by Izuku using One for All. This is where it ends. You're strong, Todoroki, so keep growing with each of your quirks. Izuku punches him so hard that he gets knocked out. The crowd roars for the boy as he then waves to them. He goes to sit back down with his class, who congratulates him, but he falls asleep. Before he passes out, he tells them to wake him up before his next match. During this is when a bunch of the class would ask Bakugo if he had any weaknesses. He tries to think of one, but he can't. Well, actually, he always tells me not to touch his tail, but I don't think it's a weak point. I think he's just self-conscious about it. The class then remembers how during his fight with Todoroki, he put out his flames before continuing the battle. Ida had already noted this as well, as he plans to utilize it during the battle. When it's time for their match, Uraraka wakes up Izuku from a short nap as he walks into the arena to see another one of his classmates. He actually didn't know who he was facing, and he was surprised. Oh, it's you, Ida. It starts with Ida running around slamming his leg into Izuku. He dodges it each time and starts to chase Ida, making this a battle of speed and endurance. Ida sees his opportunity and grabs the tail of Izuku while standing behind him. It's over now. Izuku stops moving for a moment, as All Might would cover his eyes while thinking, this won't end well. Ida wonders if it worked, as he looks up to only see his classmate boiling with rage. Izuku shouts out while slamming his fist into Ida's face. He punches his opponent into the floor of the arena, shaking the entire stadium. Even those in the parking lot could feel it, and in the stands especially. The dust settles and reveals the ground below to be completely destroyed. All Might then recalls the time during their training where he accidentally stepped on the boy's tail and his demeanor completely changed. He tries to remember the moment as he thinks to himself, I think young Midoriya said the reason was because he believes his tail connects him to the blood of his ancestors. Izuku stands there, looking down at Ida as he would walk away out of the stadium. He goes back up to his class after a while, where Bakugo looks at him. I can't believe you told him to grab my tail. Hey, his guess was as good as mine. I thought it would work. I've already surpassed that weakness. I've had enough of you doing it when we were kids. Bakugo then wins his next fight as well, as now the two face each other in the finals. They begin their own conversation while standing in the ring. I knew we'd meet here. Of course we would. We're the best. So, let's show anyone who has any doubts. Bakugo launches forward with an explosion behind him, while Izuku flies forward. A punch lands on the face of Izuku, and his leg is on Bakugo's side. He grabs hold of Izuku's leg and spins before letting go. This sends him near the edge of the ring, and he does a somersault to stop himself. He almost had me there. Izuku looks forward, not seeing his friend. Pay attention. Bakugo appears next to him, releasing a huge explosion in the arena. The crowd begins to cheer, while Bakugo scoffs. These fools really think that's going to stop him. He probably only left a scratch. Izuku waves away the smoke out of his face and looks back at Bakugo. Damn, that one hurt a lot. Bakugo then looks at Izuku's side to see he actually did a considerable amount of damage. But Izuku begins charging his power while yelling as he stands straight back up and gets in a stance. Bakugo goes to take a step, but Izuku appears right in front of him. He's then hit with several blows, and then he slams to the ground. No one even saw him move. As President Might comments on his speed, Aizawa states he's still not at his fullest. Izuku still has much more power beyond this. Bakugo is seen barely standing from these attacks, and Izuku decides now is the time to end it. He flips back to the other side and begins to charge a purple blast. Damn, this attack again? Good thing I've made a counter. Bakugo raises both of his hands, focusing on his next explosion. Each of them blasts their attacks, with a cement hero stopping them from connecting. The ring is destroyed as Bakugo is passed out on the ground, with Izuku standing with his shirt blown off. His nose starts to bleed, and he wipes it off, looking at it on his hands. Damn, Bakugo. You got me. Midnight begins the awards ceremony shortly after this, as All Might hands each of them their medals. Next, the students are given a day off from school so that they could rest. Izuku stays home with his mother as the two hang out all day, but he has a question lingering on his mind. Mom, do you know any martial arts? She shakes her head no, and he nods. I think I should learn more fighting styles, because I have the power to throw a punch. But sometimes it feels like I'm fighting like a wild animal, not a refined warrior or a hero. I think I need a break from my power training to work on more techniques. She smiles at her son, telling him that he's amazing and she'll support anything he wants to do. Izuku goes out later in the day and tries to find a martial arts dojo, but he doesn't seem to like any of the ones that he finds. The next day at school, Aizawa shows them the results from the sports festival, and the leaderboard shows the number of agencies listed for each student. Izuku was at the top with a solid 5,000. Midnight would also come into the room helping them with their hero names, and Izuku thinks of his own. He wonders what his name should be and what it should have. He has some ideas, but he disregards them when he gets the thought of another name. He goes up to the front of the class as he's the last person, and Midnight reads it. The Great Saiyaman. I like it. It incorporates who you are, and it sounds pleasing when you say it. It's approved. Izuku thanks her and goes to sit back down. Later that day, he would go to the office of All Might to discuss who he should go to. Izuku states he wishes to learn basic martial arts and fighting techniques to improve, his fighting style in combat, as he wants to perfect everything, and he wants to perfect One for All even further. All Might nods, saying he'll get back to him soon on that. Izuku thanks his mentor and leaves the room, as later that day, he gets a text from All Might and decides who he's going with. The students on a later date head to the train station to depart, but Izuku just flies to the home of Gran Torino. He knocks on the door, but there's no answer. So he walks inside and sees two old men on the floor with blood around them. Izuku drops his things and places his hand on their backs. Okay, good. They're still alive, so I'll just lend them a bit of my energy. As Izuku does so, he hears a strange noise from the TV as it cuts from commercial to the regular program that was already showing. It shows women in tights doing aerobics. One of the old men jumps up with a nosebleed, telling Gran Torino to get up. The show's back on. Oh yeah, and the kid's here. Gran Torino stands up, telling Roshi to turn it off as the kid shouldn't watch that with them. The old man then looks up at Izuku, asking who he was. Oh, I'm the Great Saiyaman from UA. All Might was the one who suggested you, but I didn't think someone else would be here. Izuku looks at Roshi and then gets a strange feeling. As he listens to Gran Torino talk to him, he decides to test his theory. He shoots a small ki blast towards Roshi, who does the same, countering it. I knew it. How can you control ki? Are you a Saiyan as well? No. You have much to learn, boy. I'm just a martial artist with an addiction. Izuku looks at the old men in the room, and Gran Torino tells them to show off One for All. Oh, okay. He activates about 20% of it, as he has it perfectly under his control. Not bad for a kid. Let's see how well you move with it, though. Try to land a strike on us. Roshi then punches him in the face. Pay attention, boy. You can sense ki, so you should be able to dodge me. Izuku tries to punch them, but Roshi simply dodges while Gran Torino bounces around the room. Even after 10 minutes of trying, he couldn't land a single blow, as the old men tell him to stop. Sure, he has the power, but power is nothing. He won't be able to take down a seasoned villain like this. He needs to learn what a true punch is. Roshi comments on how the boy wishes to learn martial arts, so they will train him. Izuku bows thanking him as his training does begin. Days go by as Izuku is seen in a completely different outfit. He was wearing a black and green custom turtle gi. He thanks Master Roshi for it as they continue his training. Gran Torino coached the boy on One for All, but it seemed he already knew what he was doing as he was heading in the right direction. They asked the boy if there's anything else he wishes to learn from them, as he sits there and nods. I want to learn to overcome my natural instincts. They asked the boy to show him what he means, and he powers up into his Ikari state as it leaves them amazed. He holds it for seconds before releasing it. If I hold it any longer, I'll lose control of myself. I want to become a Super Saiyan, but I know I have to master the basics first. Hearing this name, Roshi rubs his beard. A Super Saiyan, huh? I've seen many of those in my time. Japan's greatest heroes were the Saiyans, who had this golden flare once they powered up. I even got to instruct some of them when they were much younger, and when I was much younger. That's a power that interests me as well, because each Saiyan I met unlocked it in their own way, as some even surpassed it. Wait, there's levels beyond it? Yes, there are many levels of power beyond the basic Super Saiyan. Izuku sighs. Man, I haven't even made it to the form. How am I supposed to surpass it? The old man began laughing, telling him not to lose hope. If he hasn't unlocked it by now, he must be just one crucial step away. Roshi takes Izuku from the city as the two fly away into the mountains to meditate. He tells Izuku to enter his Ikari state and keep meditating. Don't move. Just hold it for as long as possible. They do this for many days until Izuku is able to sit still for hours in this form with no rage at all. Next, Izuku was tasked with holding the form throughout a simple day. As the next time we see him, he was still in his Ikari state, but he was watching TV with Roshi. Gran Torino would see his progress and tells the boy that they're going on patrol tonight. Izuku turns to his sensei, asking him if he was coming as well, but the old man stated they're going to have a special on the TV tonight, so he can't miss it. Izuku sighed, still not believing this was the man who trained him to this level. At night, he suits up, but isn't wearing his normal hero suit. Instead, he's in his black and green gi. Roshi tells him it looks good, and the two heroes head out. For some reason, they get on a train, but Izuku doesn't question it. As they talk, he stands up and pries the door open. Gran Torino tells him to stop and sit back down, but Izuku grabs a forearm Nomu. I knew you'd come looking for me. Let's go. Izuku throws the beast into the streets below, and then jumps down, standing in front of it. Gran Torino appears next to him, but Izuku tells him that he wishes to fight this one alone. The man sighs, telling his student he can. Still, even after all their training, he can't suppress his battle urges. Izuku gets in his fighting stance, similar to that of Goku, and rushes the Nomu. It swings its two arms through an after image of him. It looks around for the boy, but then he stands on its other two arms. It tries to grab his ankles, but he jumps over it, as then he kicks it in the face before flipping over and now holding a hand to its back. Big bang attack. The explosion goes off in the city with nothing being left of the Nomu. Gran Torino states, he's a completely different person than before. I can feel the boy's arrogance, but it's much smaller now. He radiates confidence in his abilities. Izuku then states, I sense the Nomu all around the city, so we need to move fast. Gran Torino follows him as he leads him to an area with the pro heroes who are being overwhelmed. First, he evacuates the citizens, and then he faces down the Nomu. He completely wipes them off the face of the earth, and then looks at the other heroes who take down the other one. Izuku senses something else which he thinks is strange. He tells Gran Torino that he'll be back soon, as the pro hero nods. As Izuku flies throughout the city, he remembers what happened to Ida's older brother. That's why he was in the city right now. He's here for revenge. We cut to Stain, who stood over Ida, who couldn't even move. You call yourself a hero? Well, all heroes must die. He goes to kill Ida, but is sent flying by a kick. Ida doesn't even recognize the person, because it's Izuku. He was just in his Ikari state already. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine. But you didn't have to help me. I can handle this on my own. Ida somehow manages to stand, and Izuku walks over to the other pro hero who's unconscious. Good. He's still breathing. Izuku gives him some energy to stabilize the man, and he looks back to see Ida fighting Stain once again. In his head, Ida thanks Izuku for honoring his wishes. Being able to get revenge for his brother means a lot to him. But he doesn't even do that. He loses once again to the hero killer, but is saved by his classmate. You've done enough. I'll handle it from here. Stain looks at Izuku and points his blade. Who are you supposed to be? I'm the Great Saiyaman. I'm here to save people in this city. Stain commends this fake hero for his act, but he will show him what that earns him. He rushes Izuku swinging his blade, but Izuku's fast, dodging it and landing a strike to his chest. Stain throws kunai towards him, but they're all caught. So, this is the kid that Shigaraki wants dead. I can see why. Izuku then vanishes, appearing behind Stain, kicking him inside one of the buildings. I know you were sent here. So, just so we're clear, I'm going to take him down after I defeat you. Stain gets up, noticing that his vision was blurred. Just a couple attacks from this kid and he feels like he's done for. While Izuku hasn't even broken a sweat. He swings his sword down one more time, but Izuku tilts his head, dodging it. The two keep going, but nothing works at all on Izuku. He seems invincible in this moment. Stain exclaims that he's going to kill this arrogant child. He swings his blade one final time with all his strength to try and cut him in half, but the blade itself is broken as Stain is sent flying into the back wall of the room. He looks up, seeing Izuku stand there in front of him. Man, you would have made such a cool hero. Why didn't you become one? Stain wonders why this kid was talking to him, so he humored it, talking about the failed hero society, which actually got Izuku to think about it. Yeah, I wouldn't say you're wrong at all. Hey Stain, what would you do to fix the heroes of Japan? They need to be exterminated and publicized as frauds, then replaced with true heroes such as All Might. Izuku sighs. I don't think we could kill him. But maybe once I'm the #1 hero, I'll use my influence to change everything, so people can see the real and the fake heroes. Stain begins to compare this child to that of All Might before he's knocked out by him. Izuku jumps from inside the building back outside, and he has the hero killer on his shoulder. He goes over and picks up the other hero as well. Ida stands there, looking at him, asking how he's able to do such amazing things. It's because I have to become the best. So sometimes, I do some training that I don't want to. I went against my own instincts and trained my emotions. Now I feel as if I become stronger than ever before, and that I can keep getting stronger. Overcome the wall that's in front of you, and shoot past it, all the way to your dreams. Izuku looks up, shooting a mouth beam into the sky to alert everyone where he was. The small group is later found by Endeavor, Todoroki, and Gran Torino. Another Nomu comes out of nowhere and grabs the hero killer, but he's saved by Izuku, who flies up and kills the creature. While midair, he turns in the direction of Shigaraki, who was watching him from afar. He holds up his hand, firing a ki blast that way, but the villains evade it as he quickly teleports him away from the area, as this marks the end of the hero killer saga. Now comes a couple of days that the students have left with their internships, as Izuku has to say goodbye to his mentors. Roshi tells the boy to stop by any time, and Gran Torino tells him to keep striving for a higher power. When they return to the school, All Might gives them the rescue training race. Izuku comes in first just by flying there with no problem at all. The rest of the class then notices his outfit is different. He sports the Turtle School gi, and after this class, Izuku goes to the office of All Might, where he would learn the origin of his quirk, one for all. The students also begin preparing for their final exams as we skip to their test day. All the teachers stand in front of the students as their matchups are revealed. Izuku and Bakugo are the only ones left, as they soon realize who they're up against. All Might jumps down from the skies, telling them that he will be their opponent. Izuku and Bakugo walk into the fake city. So, what's the plan, nerd? Well, he's the #1 hero, so let's overwhelm him with firepower and just get to the end so we can pass. All Might throws a punch at them, and Izuku blocks it. Bakugo then creates an explosion, hitting both of them. Izuku would stand back up as the pro hero notices his battle stance. So, he trained with Master Roshi. Hopefully he didn't pick up any of the man's bad habits. All Might rushes him, but Izuku dodges the punch, slamming his own into his side. He tries to strike Izuku, but the boy dodges and Bakugo appears again. The two of them then cause a great explosion together. And then they get away, starting to run towards the gate. So, do you want to keep fighting, or you just want to pass? Bakugo thinks about it, thinking that they should leave, as they don't know how much All Might is truly holding back, as he remembers the fight with that Nomu. Izuku nods, remembering it as well, as he throws Bakugo into the air. All Might then jumps from the rubble and goes to punch Bakugo, but Izuku blocks the attack and sends their teacher back down to the ground, as the two then fly to the gate together. They walk through passing, as did some of their classmates, but not all of them. At the end of the day, the class decides that this weekend they'll go out and buy more clothes. While out shopping, Izuku senses something familiar. He heads out to the area where the shopping centers are unopened and abandoned and sees Shigaraki. The two have a conversation while Izuku states that he will be the one to save him. Shigaraki declines this offer, telling Izuku not to follow him at all. The villain leaves the area, as now Izuku heads back to the shopping with his friends. Weeks later, they're seen on a bus heading to an unknown location with their homeroom teacher. They stop near a cliff, as all the students would get out. Aizawa tells the class that they'll be traveling on foot from here. Izuku doesn't even listen to the rest of what his teacher has to say. He jumps down the cliff with everyone else following him, as they look forward to see the monsters and begin preparing their quirks. Izuku tells him that if they work together, this won't be a challenge at all. They all jump forward, preparing themselves for the long fight ahead. The students make it to the training camp before night falls, and the cat hero group introduces themselves and their quirks. After, the students begin their training as Izuku focuses more on his martial arts than anything else. Then, the students begin cooking, and one of the kids in specific runs off. Izuku walks to Mandalay, asking about Koda, and this is where he learns of the boy's hatred for heroes and villains. Izuku makes another plate of food after eating his own, and goes up to find Koda on the cliff. "Oh, hey. Here you go. I'm not hungry." Izuku puts the plate down and sits on the edge. "You know, when I was your age, I never really liked the way the world was. There are always people suffering from loss, grief, finance, jealousy, and so much more, as there still are today. But my mom, she always told me, if I don't like the way something is, work hard to change it. I know you don't like heroes or villains, so become a strong person who can help change the way they are in the world so that no one has to go through what happened to you." Koda watches as Izuku leaves, as he has no idea what to say to him. The next night is when the villains attack, and Izuku senses Koda's energy near a villain. He tells Mandalay that he's headed that way, as Koda starts to back away from the muscle villain who keeps stepping towards him. "Don't worry, kid. I'll make this painless. I'll squash you like a bug." He goes to step on Koda, but he's kicked into the mountain by Izuku. "Sorry for making you wait. Just sit back and let me take care of him." "What's this? This is my lucky day. One of our main targets has come right to me." "Yeah, I wouldn't say what you have is luck. If I'm being honest, I've been waiting for a good fight since the hero killer. You might be the perfect opponent for me, judging how you took that kick." The muscle villain shows off more of his quirk, and Izuku powers up in response. He throws a punch, but Izuku, he redirects it into the mountain. The villain keeps throwing multiple attacks, but Izuku perfectly dodges each one, and the next one after that as well. Koda sits back, watching Izuku toy with the villain. "Wait, I watched him train, didn't I? I didn't expect him to be this strong." Izuku jumps over one of the fists thrown at him and pulls back his own, punching the villain so hard he has the wind knocked out of him. What are you? Where does this strength come from?" Izuku kicks him in the face while standing in his path. "You have so much power, but you don't know what to do with it. That's your flaw." The muscle villain shouts out, punching Izuku with all his strength, causing dust to cloud the area. Izuku stands in front of Koda to block it, taking the full force of it. The villain then begins to talk down on the two of them. "You talk all high and mighty, but you can't even take that type of attack." He then gets a weird feeling. As the dust clears, he looks down at Izuku, seeing him smiling. "You know, for a grown man, you hit like that kid over there." The student uppercuts the villain, sending him flying back. As he wipes the blood from his mouth, he looks up, seeing Izuku's fist as he sent off the mountain and into the air, where Izuku performs a rush combo. He then sends him right back into the mountain. Izuku watches the man run right at Kota, throwing another punch, as Izuku grabs his fist and enters his Akari state. That was the dumbest thing you've done all night, and you somehow managed to do it twice. Izuku punches the villain in the stomach, making him cough up blood. His punches, they feel even stronger now, but how? Izuku then slams his fist over and over into the villain until he passes out. He stands back up, charging his energy even further as he looks back at Kota. If I'm honest, I don't really like the name hero either, Kota, so you can just call me a protector. The kid begins to cry while staring at his own hero. Let's go. Izuku puts Kota on his back, and he flies back to the camp where he drops him off. He sees Aizawa, who's shocked. There are way more villains than I predicted, and we know none of their quirks. If a Nomu appears, alert me. Aizawa nods, and Izuku flies back into the forest. Mandalay was about to be hit by one of the villains, but Izuku catches the villain off guard, slamming his fist into him, sending him into the ground and creating a crater below them. Mandalay, Kota is safe, but I have a message for everyone. Tell them Aizawa has given out the green light for them to fight back. She nods as Izuku flies off to go help his classmates. He arrives in a forest, seeing Dark Shadow. He notices that his friend is being taken over by his quirk, so he rushes right in. Don't worry, I'll handle this. Izuku begins charging up his energy, and this alone would be enough to stop it, but he shoots out several ki blasts at once, and then he shouts, "Dirty fireworks barrage!" Tokoyami is consumed by the explosion and passes out, with his quirk no longer being active. Alright, now, let's go find him. I have a feeling I know who the other target is. Izuku runs into Shoji, who thanks him for saving Tokoyami, but now the two head for Bakugo and Todoroki, who are fighting some sort of teeth villain. Izuku flies by, ripping through the man's teeth with just his shoulder alone. Alright, looks like I made it in time. Bakugo, you're one of their targets. This shocks all of them, especially Bakugo. So what's the plan, nerd? Let's group the class back together and take down the villains by ourselves. We don't really need the pros for this. They nod and follow Izuku towards Uraraka and Tsuyu. As they arrive, they tell them the plan, but Izuku turns around looking for Bakugo. He shoots a large ki blast towards the magician, who keeps attacking them. Give him back. He shakes his head no and begins to leave as Todoroki joins in and uses both his ice and fire quirks, but the magician still gets away. The Saiyan's rage seems to be overtaking him as he releases his Akari state but tries to remain calm. He grabs everyone and flies into the sky, and as the villains try to leave, the group lands right on top of them, beginning another fight. They try to get Bakugo back, but another Nomu would appear, as this one can conjure up weapons. Izuku punches it back while watching them take Bakugo away. The Nomu then stands over Izuku as he falls to the ground screaming in agony. Why? Why did they take him? Are they gonna kill him? Wait, would they turn him into a Nomu? The Nomu then tries to attack Izuku but is sent flying back by his ferocious ki. His classmates shout that it'll be okay, but he can't even hear them over his own thoughts. He stands up, clenching his fist, and with the pain of someone close to him like a brother being taken away from him. Something snaps within him, and he begins to shout, having his ki explode and lightning surge on the ground around him. The golden energy finally shoots down upon him and shoots back up into the sky, separating the clouds, revealing the stars. His classmates don't even know what happened, as all they can see is his golden hair now flowing through the wind, with his eyes a light blue. I'm gonna kill you. The Nomu rushes in, but Izuku breaks all of its weapons in seconds. He then punches it in the stomach, sending it flying throughout the forest. Students from Class B would see the creature and almost get scared, but then see Izuku land another attack towards the creature. He keeps slamming his fists into the Nomu, asking where Bakugo is, but it then begins to adapt. But even this isn't enough, as Izuku's power seems to keep growing by the moment. The student dodges its fist and kicks the beast into the skies. If you don't know where he is, then I'll finish this now. Final flash! He shoots the beam of energy, and it completely destroys half of the Nomu, as it barely dodged. The remaining half is then teleported away by the villains. No one has anything to say to Izuku, as he's in such a vengeful state. He flies up into the sky and tries to find the energy of his friend, but he can't sense it, so he must be far away from here. Izuku begins to charge up his energy more and more, as his power seems to have no limit. But he does so until he calms down. Still in the form, he floats back down. His class surrounds him, but he doesn't speak at all. He walks towards the camp and brings back several injured students on his back. By now, the paramedics were already there, and Aizawa was shocked while looking at his student. This golden hair, no emotion in his face, but he could sense the anger. He lays them down carefully, and he looks at his hand. His teacher asked if he was okay, but there was no answer. Izuku looks around, seeing that everyone was there. Everyone but one person was safe. But as he thinks of Bakugo once again, his ki explodes. Everyone is alarmed, not knowing what to do, especially the pros. But the boy passes out on the ground. While asleep, Izuku has a strange dream. He sees a man in a Super Saiyan form, looking down on him. It's hard to believe you're a Saiyan. You're supposed to be an elite, my descendant. But here you are, defeated, in a pitiful state. Show me what it means to be a Saiyan elite. Show me your pride, the strength that comes with this power. Show me what drives you to become stronger and fight to see another day. Do not let your failures dictate your actions. Let them become lessons for the future and allow them to help you keep growing stronger. Now, show me who you are. Izuku, in his dream, shouts as loud as he can as he wakes up in Super Saiyan. He sits in his transformation for a while, looking at the ki flow around his hands, as he then lets it go and his hair falls back down. He gets up from the bed and begins to work out. When his classmates come in to visit him, they are shocked to see he was already out of bed. Oh, hey guys. Todoroki asked him what that power was. It's what I've been striving for this entire time. It's known as the Super Saiyan. It's a legendary power. It pushes past my normal limitations, but even I couldn't control it. It took everything in me not to destroy everyone and everything around me. The rest of Class A leaves except for Ida, Kirishima, Todoroki, and Momo. They tell Izuku their plan for getting Bakugo back, and he says he's coming with them. Ida tells him it's too dangerous, but before he could explain the rest of what he wanted to say, Izuku knocks him out. I don't have time to argue with you. Let's go save him. They get their disguises and make it to the warehouse. Before they could even look inside, Izuku stops them. This isn't where Bakugo is. I can't sense his energy. This is a factory for the Nomu. I can sense hundreds of them inside there. We need to destroy this first. Before they could even leave, Mount Lady destroys the facility and heads in with the heroes and the SWAT team. The students go to leave, but then sense someone powerful that petrifies them as they weren't able to move. Izuku himself begins to shake in fear while looking at a strange man. I have no doubts at all that's him. All for one. The students watch each of the pro heroes get dismantled by this villain. Then Bakugo and the League of Villains are teleported there. Izuku makes a plan and tells them all to wait for his signal. Ice is then created, and Izuku shoots them into the sky while jumping into battle. Kirishima puts his hand out and Bakugo goes to grab it. Izuku defends them from being, taken down by the villains and lands back on the ground, now standing in front of All For One. My, what do we have here? A young child trying to play hero. I admire the bravery that you possess, but it will be the end of you. Izuku was still shaking, so he powered up. He remembers that voice, that dream he had. He has to show what he has right now. He goes into Super Saiyan. As the man calls it amazing, but it's not enough. Izuku punches him in the face, sending him flying. It wasn't supposed to be. This is when All Might lands on the battlefield after seeing a signal. Good work, young Midoriya. Now, leave the area. Not yet. There's still people here. It's my job to save them while you focus on the battle. All Might thanks him, and a news helicopter watches the battle but often pans to a golden-haired boy helping save the civilians. But Izuku keeps being attacked by All For One as he does so, and he hides his injuries from everyone else. After getting them all to a safe location, he heads back into the fight. Shigaraki would try to interfere with the battle, but is punched by Izuku. 3 of his ribs are then cracked by this, causing All For One to send them all away. The villain attacks Izuku, but he dodges, and All Might punches him through a building. I'll be on standby, All Might. If it looks too bad, I'm going to jump back in and help you, but I'm leaving it to you for now. Izuku flies away to a rooftop not too far from the battle and powers down. The helicopter then gets a good look at him as the news reporter states it's Izuku Midoriya from the UA Sports Festival. He's being a hero in this moment. The helicopter then pans to his injury on his side to reveal that he was bleeding as they ask for help from anyone. He then rips off his jacket and stops the bleeding himself while laying there, watching the fight below. All Might eventually defeats All For One, and Izuku begins crying, realizing his teacher won't be able to fight anymore. It's really up to him now. He has to master this quirk. After this incident, the school is closed down for a while as UA receives a lot of hate from the public. A couple weeks go by as All Might enters the home of Izuku and Inko. The boy comes out with his lower stomach still bandaged up. He explains what UA wants to do with creating their dorms for each student, and Inko tells the pro hero, she knows everything by now, and she knows her son has been given his quirk. All Might looks to Izuku, who says, she always knew. She's a genius after all. Inko sits down with All Might as they begin to talk. You already know the story of how the Saiyans were created by All For One. But there's even more than that. She hands him a book. It's a very, very old notebook. What is this? It's from the first Saiyan, Yamoshi. He was the youngest brother of All For One. After becoming a Saiyan from being experimented on by All For One, he told the first user of One For All that he will create an army to support whoever the quirk gets passed down to in the future. However, All For One caught on to their plans, and that's why my family was killed. All Might looks at Izuku, who stood there with his hands balled up in a fist. He had learned this information earlier this week, and it enraged him. I'm going to save Japan from All For One and his plans. I know it's not over, because Shigaraki, he's still out there somewhere. Inko calms her son down, and she tells All Might to keep guiding her son so that he can protect everyone's future. All Might begins to cry, making it a promise. The hero goes to leave their home, but is stopped by Inko as she places him in a healing tank, and he comes out with no injuries on his body. The scars from All For One still are there, but his arms and his chest, they're healed. But he also feels much better than before. He turns to his student, asking why he hasn't sat inside the healing tank himself. I made a mistake while I was fighting. So, I want to feel the pain of that mistake for a while so I don't make it again. Inko tells All Might it's no use, he's pretty stubborn. But she also tells him to send word to the Hero Association that the healing tanks will soon be finished in the coming months and will be added to every hospital in Japan. Even if she cannot fight on the front lines anymore, she still will help the world as much as she can. All Might says he wishes for her to come back to the hero world. But she smirks. You say that, but it wouldn't change anything. My son has already surpassed me in strength. All Might looks around for Izuku, but he was already gone. Where did he go? He never does stop. Follow me. Ever since the school got closed, and he saw how much everyone was hating his school, especially you guys, the teachers, as you were getting the most backlash, he hasn't stopped training. He told me he's the key for the future, so he has to become the strongest Saiyan to ever walk this earth. They walk into a surveillance room to see Izuku training in a gravity room, fighting against robots that change into the villains that he's fought before. All Might tells her that he's amazing, but she begins laughing. Yeah, he is. I wasn't able to train in this gravity until I was about 18. He asked her how much it is, and she said 100. The #1 hero looks at Izuku, who is fighting with everything that he has, as the robots, well, they up their strength and begin landing strikes upon him. Izuku is slammed into the wall over and over, but he stands up shouting, transforming into a Super Saiyan. He rips through each of the training dummies and robots and stands there in victory. Eventually, the school would open back up, as the students begin to visit each other's room, and they look in Izuku's room to see a bag of capsules. They ask him what they do, and he takes the bag outside as they would follow him. These are my training capsules. Since I'm not home, I can't use the gravity room, so I had the thought to bring one with me. He opens one of them as it appears to be a large ship, but it's a gravity room, and they head inside. As they walk inside, he shows them around, and then he shows what gravity that he trains on since they were curious. He turns on 100 as they all fall to the ground. Then they exit the gravity room, and he puts it back into its capsule somehow. They call him crazy, but he says it's not that bad once you get used to it. He then points to Bakugo. He trains in 50 times gravity, so it shouldn't be that shocking. But it was, as they call these two monsters. The students return to their regular schedule, and they enter a class with many pro heroes, saying this is their chance to develop their special moves. Izuku thinks about what attacks he could use for a special move, and goes through his checklist of his strongest attacks. I wonder what I can do for another ultimate attack. He sits back, but actually decides to master Super Saiyan. He remembers his training to master his Akari state, so he does the same with Super Saiyan. He keeps practicing with One for All, learning more and more about it. Maybe he can stack it on top of Super Saiyan somehow. Days later, Izuku returns to the room where the rest of his class already was. A rock is then broken as it begins to fall on All Might. Izuku flies into it with ki surrounding his fist, as he slices it into pieces and they fall around everyone. He then stands there smiling. Spirit Sword. The pros give him the approval, and notice that he's in Super Saiyan. All Might questions if it's affecting him, but he says it's fine. It's just draining him right now until he masters it. Many more days pass, and the students go to take their provisional license exam. On the bus, many notice that Izuku is sleeping while in Super Saiyan. Aizawa states it's amazing just how much he's improved that form in a couple days. But the real test has yet to arrive. The students get off the bus to see another school. One of their students slams its head to the ground, saying that he loves UA High School. The hero Miss Joke arrives as well, to mess with Aizawa, and then she calls her own students over. Shindo walks over to Izuku, introducing himself and saying that his tail is pretty awesome. Izuku thanks him, but then he watches him go to touch it, causing Izuku to flare up his enormous ki. I'd rather you not. The students then meet in the main hall, where one man explains the first event. Izuku passes a note to each of his classmates, saying to be ready, as they're going to be the main targets. As soon as the first test begins, all the other students aim for their targets. Todoroki creates an ice wall, and Izuku slams his fist to the ground, creating dust that shoots up all around them. The UA students then scatter around the battlefield. Izuku flies up, looking down to see the same guy from before, using a wind quirk to take out hundreds of contestants. Izuku then smirks, rushing down, taking out 20 in the span of seconds. Joke comments to Aizawa that a student is exceptional to face All For One with All Might, even if it was for mere seconds, is incredible. He's alright. I wouldn't call what he has exceptional. He was born gifted, yes, but he realized early on there are also many other gifted people in the world. But those same gifted people, they don't work as hard as he does. If any of my students will pass, it will be him. Next, once the preparations are made, the second round begins with the rescue examination. Izuku flies into the destroyed city. He finds a group of civilians stuck under a building. Don't worry, I'll get you out of there. Izuku rips open one of the doors, and he lifts up a piece of rubble, allowing a couple of them to crawl out as he flies throughout the building, helping the rest. Alright, let me see. Izuku then shares his energy with all of them to heal any minor injuries. Then, he carries them all slowly to a safe location. After saving about 10 more people, Gang Orca enters the building. Izuku then faces them alone, and he begins to use his strength to separate them from the civilians. Many others then join in this battle as well. As soon, the test will be over, and Izuku finds his name near the top of the leaderboard, saying that he passed, as many others from his class did as well. After this is when we see All Might sitting in front of All For One, as they have a conversation about the state of the world and many other things. A couple more days go by as the students from UA are introduced to the big three of their school. The three of them walk in, standing before the class, causing Izuku to sit up from his desk and pay attention. This could be interesting. Izuku listens as the big three of UA introduces themselves to his class. Mirio will tell them all that he wishes to fight them alone. The students head to the training room, where they look forward. Izuku thinks about it, and he's seen Mirio's face somewhere before, he just can't remember. As Mirio phases through the ground, taking down all of his classmates, it then clicks with him. The other day when he was taking out the trash for the class, he saw a face in the wall, and that was Mirio. But he gets in a fighting stance, disregarding that. Alright, I'm ready. I've seen enough of your quirk to know how I can compete with you. I was hoping you'd say that. Mirio phases through the ground, but Izuku turns around where he would appear and kicks through him. Mirio goes to punch Izuku, but his fist then goes through the body of the boy's after image. You're fast. I could say the same about you. Izuku appears right in front of him, landing a punch on his side. This shocks everyone, as no one was able to hit Mirio but Izuku.